So I know what you're all thinking. What a beautiful plane. And you know, I think from about 25 feet away, she is pretty good looking. You get too close and things start to become a little bit more apparent. There's certainly some thin paint in places and, you know, a few odds and ends, but for the price we paid and the avionics that it has, man, this thing sure fits the bill. So what we have here is a 1963 Mooney M20C, one of the earlier models with the curved rear passenger windows. Really doesn't have any speed modifications, which are really popular. Things like closed cowling or flap gap seals, things of that nature. It doesn't have those, and we may pursue them a little bit. It's not the most important thing to us. As she sits right now, she's already pretty fast and economical, which is what we're looking for. More importantly than its speed, its ability to carry passengers. So it is a 4-place. You can fit 3 full-grown adults pretty comfortably. This has a little bit smaller fuel tanks. It's only 48 gallons. The later models had 52. So we save a little bit of weight there, but lose a little bit of range. So again, we can fit 2 adults and 2 kids really easily, which just happens to be my family, 2 adults and 2 kids. It is a retract. It's all manual retract called a Johnson bar, which is phenomenal. Easy to use. You gotta get a little tough with it, but it's easy to use and one of the most reliable retractable systems out there. It's also got a constant speed propeller, so it gives you the advantages of a flat prop when you're climbing and can bite some more air and gain speed when you're going places. Which is all new to me, which is great to learn. We found it in northwest Wisconsin from a super nice gentleman who didn't want to see it go, but it was time for him to let it go. So it's about 800 hours on the engine, and we believe that we will get a ton of life out of this thing and really do some great training in it and some great travel. That's my goal. Getting my IFR certification is my next big step. This is an IFR certified airplane, and we're going to keep it that way. My goal today is to update the GPS that's in it to the current database, which will give me even more confidence as I'm out there flying. All right, before I get too crazy here, trying to update this GPS, I thought I'd give you a little tour of the avionics, the interior of the airplane. So over on the far left, we've got a clock, kind of a multi-function electronics international clock. We use that for time and field changes and of course IFR procedures and all that fun stuff. We've got our airspeed indicator. This thing does, I've found anyways, to true at least 160 miles an hour, 140 knots, which is pretty fantastic. Of course, we've got the standard 6-pack of instruments, altitude, VSI, DG, turn slip coordinator, and artificial horizon. Underneath that, we've got our electronics. You'll see a placard there about nav lights being on for ADS-B. We did just get the tail beacon installed on this plane prior to bringing it home, and that seems to function pretty nice. So far, so good. We've got some annunciator lights up top here, and a button, of course, to flip the CDI over from GPS to the nav radios. We do have 2 CDIs, one hooked up to, again, the GPS or nav 1, and the second one is its own radio. They both seem to function really well. They were within about a degree of each other, so that'll work really well. We've also got an older ATD, Monroy ATD traffic indicator. Probably leave that off for the most part, especially with having iPads and ADS-B and all that fun stuff. But it's a good backup if anything ever to happen. The radio stack over here, we've got a KMA 26 intercom. When we first bought the plane, we actually thought we had a pretty big issue with the intercom. When you were talking to each other, you didn't get a side tone, and if you plugged in a push-to-talk switch, you got nothing. We actually found out, the issues were all with the push-to-talk switch in the loop. So did a little reading, talked to a great avionics guy around here, and he said there's just a quick solder job you have to do on that push-to-talk button, and it would work. And it did. So 10 seconds worth of soldering, and our intercom works great. It's got isolation for the rear, the crew, And again, works pretty good. Below it is the culprit for today, the KLN 94. It's got a GPS from the early 2000s in it right now, or a database from the early 2000s. So our goal is to get that up to date, make sure we have the best data we can for the time being. We've got our second comm below it. So again, that's just a comm. And then an old AT50A transponder. We're going to use that till she quits. And if it quits, we'll probably find another one and slam it in there. So far, so good. We do have the Mooney autopilot wing leveler, if you will, that is currently in op. I need to get that placarded as in op. And you know what? That may be a little bit of a project for later. And then COM 1, NAV 1, KX 155, pretty standard stuff there. And a storm scope, which works. Haven't had the opportunity to use it yet, but maybe we will. Of course, we got the standard 6-pack. I do hope standard 6-pack engine gauges, fuel, oil, cylinder, and amps. I do hope to update that to something like a JPI unit when time and money allows. And then we have our Electronics International digital manifold pressure and TAC, which seem to work really well. And then fuel computer, which we're still getting the kind of the bugs worked out of. Just making sure, I don't know that it was ever set up the way it should have been, or maybe we messed with it on the way home and messed it up a little bit. So we'll get that fixed. And then got our EGT gauge, which again seems to work good. That yellow line is set for peak. It's actually set for rich of peak by about 100 degrees from the angle of the pilot. So again, get up to altitude, start leaning, or as we're climbing up, start leaning it back, and we can go right to that yellow line. That's kind of the goal. And of course, we have circuit breakers here and fuses up top for everything else. Master switches. The flaps in this, the older style Moonies before maybe 64, they used this push button switch or lever, I guess. When it's in and you pump the handle, the flaps stay down, and then you pull it to release them. The newer style ones, or the next style, had a toggle switch that went up and down. This doesn't have it. I do wish it had that switch a little bit, the up and down switch, because you push them down and you know they're going to stay down. This, you have to remember, in for down, out for up. So anyways, just something to learn. And then this is the Johnson bar. You guys have seen a lot of videos on Moonies, I'm sure, in the past. Again, it works really well. About 1 second retract or 1 second gear down time, which is it's pretty darn nice. This one other thing to note, this model has the manually retractable step instead of the vacuum actuated one. Most of the time I just leave it up unless my kids are coming. I got nice long legs and can climb up there pretty easy, but if my kids are coming around, I'm happy to put the step down for them. When it's cold out, she's a little hard to maneuver or actuate, but we're making that happen. This does have a 4-place intercom. Got a couple older David Clarks in the back, and enough leg room for, again, one bigger person sitting in the middle, or my 2 little girls and some baggage behind that. So this is the interior, and again, we're really, really happy with it so far.